My white wife laughed at my janitor uniform in front of her elite friends, but she had no idea I was about to change into a $3,000 suit and reveal the $50 million secret that would shatter her world forever. See? While Vivian was busy being ashamed of her poor husband, I was quietly running an empire she never bothered to ask about. That night at her precious gala, when she mocked me like I was nothing more than the help, I walked out, but not before I decided to show her exactly who she'd been humiliating. What happened next didn't just destroy her reputation, it exposed the ugly truth about love, money, and what happens when you bet everything on someone else's shame. The revenge I served was ice cold, and the justice? Absolutely poetic. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because you're about to witness the most satisfying takedown of entitled privilege you've ever seen. The city was still sleeping when I pushed my cart through the marble lobby of the Sterling Tower. It was 4:30 in the morning, and the only sounds were my rubber-soled shoes squeaking against the polished floor and the hum of the air conditioning system. I like this time of day. No one around to look at me funny. No one to wonder why a black man was pushing a janitor's cart through a building where most people made more money in a month than some folks saw all year. The truth was, I could buy this building if I wanted to, but that wasn't the point. My name is Malik Carter, and I've been working nights as a janitor for 3 years now. Not because I had to, because I chose to. Because when you grow up poor like I did, you never forget where you came from. And sometimes, when life gets too fancy, too complicated, too full of people who only care about your title, you need to remember what real work feels like. I pulled out my phone and saw 7 missed texts from my wife, Vivian, all sent after midnight, all about tonight's gala. Where did you put my grandmother's pin? I need it for my speech tonight. Malik, this is important. Please find it. The Hale Foundation Gala is our biggest event of the year. Don't mess this up for me. I scrolled through the messages, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest. Vivian used to say, please and thank you, when she asked me for things. Now, her texts sounded like orders from a boss to an employee. The pin. I remembered now. She'd thrown it on our bedroom dresser last night after practice for her speech, told me to put it somewhere safe while she took a shower. I'd tucked it away in the drawer, wrapped in tissue paper like it was made of gold, which, knowing the Hale family, it probably was. I finished mopping the lobby and headed to the supply closet to put my equipment away. That's when my phone rang. Mrs. Gaines. Malik, baby, you still at work? Her voice was warm and scratchy, like she'd been smoking cigarettes for 50 years, which she had. Yes, ma'am, just finishing up. I was driving by and saw your truck. You've been working too many nights again. Mrs. Loretta Gaines was 67 years old and had been head custodian at the Sterling Tower for 30 years. She was also the woman who taught me everything I knew about cleaning, about pride, and about not letting people treat you like dirt just because you wore a uniform. I'm fine, Mrs. Gaines. Just thinking. About that fancy wife of yours? I was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Gaines had a way of seeing straight through me. She's having this big gala tonight for her family's foundation. Real important stuff. And let me guess, you don't feel welcome. That was the thing about Mrs. Gaines. She never sugar-coated anything. It's not that simple, I said. Boy, it's exactly that simple. Either your wife treats you like her partner or she doesn't. Either she's proud to stand next to you or she ain't. I leaned against the supply closet door, feeling tired in a way that had nothing to do with work. She's under a lot of pressure from her family. Her dad, Grant, he's not my biggest fan. And what about Vivian? Is she your biggest fan? I couldn't answer that, because lately I wasn't sure. Malik, listen to me, Mrs. Gaines said, her voice getting serious. I've been watching you for 3 years. I've seen you be kind to people who didn't deserve it. I've seen you work harder than men half your age. But I've also seen you getting smaller and smaller every time that woman calls. Mrs. Gaines, don't Mrs. Gaines me. You know I'm right. That girl's got you thinking you need to apologize for being who you are. And baby, that ain't love. That's training. I was quiet for a long moment, watching the sun start to come up through the windows. I should get home, I finally said. She needs that pin for tonight. Malik? Yes, ma'am? Don't beg for respect in rooms that sell it. You hear me? I hear you. But as I hung up and headed to my truck, I wasn't sure I was listening. The drive home took 20 minutes through the quiet streets of the city's expensive side. Vivian and I lived in a house that could fit 3 families. Her grandmother had left it to her, along with enough money to never worry about working if she didn't want to. But Vivian wanted to work. She was CEO of the Hale Foundation, a job her father had created for her when she graduated from college. She was good at it too, when she wasn't too busy worrying about what people thought of her. I pulled into our driveway and sat in my truck for a minute, looking at our house. It was beautiful. White columns, perfectly trimmed lawn, flowers that some company came to plant every season. It looked like the kind of place where people lived happy lives. Inside, I could hear Vivian talking on the phone. Even through the closed door, I could tell she was stressed. Her voice got high and sharp when she was nervous, like a bird, warning other birds about danger. I took off my work boots on the porch and went inside in my socks. The house smelled like the expensive candles Vivian bought from some fancy store downtown. Everything was clean and perfect and cold. No, Daddy, I don't think he understands how important tonight is, Vivian was saying. She was in the living room, pacing in her silk pajamas, her phone pressed to her ear. I could hear her father's voice on the other end, deep and serious like a judge giving a sentence. He'll be fine, Vivian continued. He just needs to blend in, you know? Stand by the wall, smile, don't talk to the reporters. I stopped walking. Blend in, stand by the wall. I know. Ethan thinks we should have gone with separate cars, but that would look worse. At least if Malik's with me, people will see I'm married and stop asking questions. Ethan, her old friend from college, old friend who just happened to be rich, white, and single. Old friend who looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. I cleared my throat. Vivian spun around, her face going red. Daddy, I have to go. I'll see you tonight. She hung up and tried to smile at me, but it looked fake, like the smile she used for photos. Hey, honey, how was work? Fine. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. I heard you looking for your grandmother's pin. Yes? Do you know where it is? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small tissue paper bundle. Vivian practically grabbed it from my hands, unwrapping it like it was a present. Oh, thank God. I thought I'd lost it. She pinned it to her pajama top and looked at herself in the mirror by the stairs. How does it look? Beautiful, I said, and it was. The pin was a small silver flower with tiny diamonds, but that wasn't what made it beautiful. It was the way it made Vivian's face light up like she was a little girl playing dress up. Tonight's going to be perfect, she said, more to herself than to me. My speech is ready, the donors are excited, and Daddy says we're going to raise more money than last year. That's great, baby. She looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time since I'd come home. You're going to need to shower when you get up, and wear the navy suit, the one from Nordstrom, not the one from Men's Warehouse. Okay. And Malik? Yeah? She moved closer to me, and for a second I thought she might hug me. Instead, she reached up and straightened my collar. Tonight is really important to me, to my family. Don't make me look bad, okay? The words hit me like a slap. What do you mean? You know what I mean. Just Be yourself, but quietly. Let me handle the talking. Vivian, what are you saying? She sighed like I was being difficult. I'm saying this isn't like the barbecues at your grandmother's house. These people are different. They have expectations. What kind of expectations? The kind where wives don't have to explain their husbands. I stared at her, trying to understand. Explain me how. Nothing. Forget it. I'm stressed. She kissed my cheek quickly and started walking toward the stairs. I'm going to take a bath and practice my speech again. Can you make sure my dress is ready? It's hanging in the closet. Sure. I watched her walk up the stairs, her bare feet silent on the expensive carpet. When she was gone, I looked at myself in the hallway mirror. I saw a 30-year-old black man in a janitor's uniform, standing in a house worth more than most people would make in a lifetime. For a moment, I tried to see what Vivian saw, what her father saw, what Ethan and all their friends saw. I tried to see someone who needed to be explained, but all I saw was myself, and I didn't understand why that wasn't enough. By noon, the house was buzzing with activity. Vivian had 3 different phone calls about the gala while I showered. Her makeup artist arrived at 1. Her hairdresser came at 2. I stayed out of the way, mostly in my office upstairs, handling some business calls of my own, because while Vivian was preparing to host a charity gala, I was running a company that employed 300 people across 5 states. Not that anyone at tonight's gala would know that. My phone buzzed with a text from Nora Kim, my executive assistant and operations manager. Board meeting still scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thompson Industries wants to finalize the merger talks. Are you available? I texted back, yes. Keep me posted on any changes. Will do. How are you feeling about tonight? Nora was one of the few people who knew about both sides of my life. She'd been with my company for 5 years, ever since I'd hired her away from a Fortune 500 firm. She was smart, loyal, and didn't care that I chose to spend my nights mopping floors. Honestly, I'd rather be working. Want me to create an emergency that needs your attention? I smiled for the first time all day. Tempting. But no, Vivian needs me there. You're a good husband, Malik, even when she doesn't deserve it. I didn't respond to that, mostly because I wasn't sure she was wrong. Around 3, I went downstairs to check on Vivian. She was in our bedroom, standing in front of the full-length mirror in a dark blue dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. She looked stunning. How do I look? She asked, but she wasn't really asking. She knew she looked perfect. Beautiful. Good. Because Ethan's going to be there with some important friends from New York, and I want to make sure we look like we belong. We? You know what I mean. But I didn't. And I was getting tired of pretending I did. Vivian, can we talk for a minute? She was fixing her earrings and didn't look away from the mirror. Make it quick. I still need to review my speech one more time. What did you mean earlier about not making you look bad? Now she turned around and her face had that expression she got when she thought I was being dense. Malik, these people have known my family for generations. They've watched me grow up. They have opinions about who I should be married to. Opinions like what? Like, like you should be successful, established, part of their world. And I'm not? She was quiet for too long. You work nights as a janitor, Malik. I know you're proud of it, and I respect that. But these people don't understand it. So help them understand. It's not that simple. Why not? Because she sat down on the edge of the bed, suddenly looking tired. Because my father already thinks I married down. Because Ethan and his friends think I'm going through some kind of phase. Because every time we go to these events, I spend half the night answering questions about why you're not a doctor or a lawyer or running your own business. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. And what do you tell them? I tell them, you're working on your master's degree. I tell them you're between jobs. I tell them you're helping your family with their cleaning business. Each lie was like a small cut. Why don't you tell them the truth? What truth? That you're married to someone you love? That what I do for work doesn't change who I am as a man? That your husband doesn't need to be explained or apologized for? Vivian looked at me like I'd just asked her to solve a math problem she didn't understand. Malik, you don't get it. These people, their world, it's complicated. No, it's not. Either you're proud to be married to me or you're not. Of course I'm proud. Then act like it. We stared at each other for a long moment. I could see something moving behind her eyes, like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how. Finally, she stood up and smoothed her dress. I need to finish getting ready. We have to leave in 2 hours. Vivian, please, Malik, not today. Tonight is too important. I watched her walk to her vanity and start touching up her makeup. In the mirror, I could see her face, and for just a second, she looked sad. But then she blinked, and the expression was gone, replaced by the bright, perfect smile she wore for cameras. I went to my closet and pulled out the navy suit she'd asked for. As I was getting dressed, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Gaines. You still planning on going to that fancy party? Yeah? How you feeling about it? I looked at myself in the mirror. Navy suit, white shirt, conservative tie. I looked like exactly what I was supposed to look like. Like I'm wearing a costume, I said. Malik, baby, listen to me. You can love someone and still not let them make you feel small. You understand? I understand. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like that girl's got you thinking you need to shrink yourself to fit into her world. She's just nervous, Mrs. Gaines. This event means a lot to her family. And what about you? What do you mean to her family? I didn't have an answer for that. Malik, I'm going to tell you something my grandmother told me when I was young. She said, don't ever let someone treat you like a secret. You're not a secret. You're a blessing. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed and thought about that, about being a blessing versus being a secret. Downstairs, I could hear Vivian practicing her speech one more time, her voice carrying through the house like music. She sounded confident, poised, like someone who belonged exactly where she was. I wondered if she'd ever sounded that confident when she talked about me. At 5:30, Vivian came downstairs in her full outfit. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, dress fitting like it had been made just for her body. Ready? She asked. I was wearing the suit she'd requested. My shoes were shined. My tie was straight. I looked exactly like what she'd asked for. Ready? I said. But as we walked to the car, I realized I wasn't sure what I was ready for. I only knew that after tonight, something between us was going to be different. I just didn't know it would be everything. The Grandview Hotel ballroom looked like something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen fireworks. Round tables covered in white cloth filled the room, each one set with more silverware than most people used in a week. Women in evening gowns moved through the space like colorful flowers, their jewelry catching the light every time they turned their heads. And I walked into the middle of it, wearing my janitor uniform. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. I was supposed to go home after my afternoon shift, shower, and meet Vivian at the hotel. But the venue manager had called me in a panic around 4 o'clock. Malik, thank God you answered. We've got a crisis. 3 of our cleaning crew called in sick, and we've got a leak in the service hallway. Can you come in for an hour, just to help us get ready? I looked at the clock. I had time, and helping people in trouble was something I'd been doing my whole life. I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said. The plan was simple: fix the leak, help set up, then duck out to change clothes and come back as Malik Carter, husband of Vivian Hale Carter. Not Malik Carter, the guy with the mop. But plans don't always work the way you want them to. The leak was worse than they'd said. Water was seeping through the wall behind the kitchen, threatening to flood the main dining area. It took me 2 hours to track down the source and get it fixed properly. By the time I finished, guests were already arriving. I tried calling Vivian to explain, but her phone went straight to voicemail. She was probably in the middle of her pre event photos. I stood in the service hallway, looking at my watch. I could either miss the beginning of her speech, the most important part of the night for her, or I could go in as I was and change later. I chose wrong. The ballroom was already half full when I walked through the main entrance. I'd meant to slip in through the service door, but hotel security had locked it after the kitchen incident. So I walked in the front, past the photographers and the red carpet setup, wearing my Navy work uniform with Sterling Tower Facilities embroidered on the pocket. A few people looked at me strangely, but most ignored me completely. I was just the help after all, invisible until someone needed something cleaned up. I spotted Vivian near the front of the room, talking to a group of people I recognized from previous events. Her father Grant was there, tall and silver haired in his perfect tuxedo. Next to him stood Ethan Crow, looking like he'd just stepped off the cover of a magazine. Vivian saw me before I could reach her. I watched her face change in real time. First confusion, then recognition, then something that looked like horror. She excused herself from the group and walked quickly toward me, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Malik, what are you doing here like that? I'm sorry, baby. There was an emergency at the venue and I had to help. I'll go change real quick. Change where? The event already started. Her voice was sharp, like she was talking to a child who'd made a mess. I have my suit in the car. Just give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes? I'm giving my speech in 5. She looked around the room like she was checking to see who might be watching us. Why didn't you call me? I did call. It went to voicemail. So, you thought this was better? Showing up like this? The way she said this made my stomach turn, like I was something dirty that had wandered in from the street. Vivian, I was helping. The place was flooding. I couldn't just leave. Yes, you could have. That's not your job. Helping people is always my job. She closed, her eyes for a second like she was trying to calm herself down. When she opened them, her face was smooth and blank. Okay, okay, fine. Just go stand by the wall over there. Don't talk to anyone. I'll introduce you later as my husband, but try not to draw attention to yourself. Don't draw attention to myself? You know what I mean. But I was starting to realize I didn't know what she meant about a lot of things. I watched her walk back to her group, her spine straight, her smile bright and perfect. She said something to them that made them all laugh. Ethan put his hand on her shoulder, like he was comforting her. I went to stand by the wall like she'd asked. Vivian's speech was beautiful. She talked about her grandmother's legacy, about helping families who didn't have the advantages she'd grown up with. She talked about dignity and respect and the importance of lifting each other up. She never looked at me once. After the speech, there was applause and mingling and the kind of small talk that rich people seem to enjoy. I stayed where Vivian had put me, watching her move through the crowd like she was born for this, which, I guess, she was. Excuse me, you work here? I turned to see an older woman in a gold dress looking at me expectantly. Not exactly, ma'am. Well, could you refresh my drink? It's just champagne. Before I could explain, she'd handed me her empty glass and walked away. I stood there holding it, feeling foolish. That's not his job, Mrs. Patterson. I turned to see a young black woman in a server's uniform smiling at me sympathetically. I'm Keisha, she said, taking the glass from my hands. I work for the catering company. You must be the facilities guy who fixed the leak earlier. Yeah, that's me, Malik. Well, Malik, thank you for saving our butts tonight. If this place had flooded, we'd all be out of jobs. She was kind and real, and talking to her made me feel human again. You know, she said, looking around the room, I've been working these kinds of events for 3 years and I've learned something. What's that? Half the people in this room got their money from their great great granddaddies who probably treated people like us real bad. The other half are so scared of losing their place at the table that they'll step on anybody to keep it. She gestured toward where Vivian was standing with her group. That pretty lady in blue. She your wife? Yeah. She looks nervous. I looked at Vivian again. She was laughing at something Ethan had said, but her laugh was too high, too bright, like she was trying too hard. These events stress her out, I said. Uh-huh. Keisha gave me a look that said she understood more than I was saying. Well, I better get back to work. But Malik, you seem like good people. Don't let nobody make you feel small just because you do honest work. After she left, I stayed by the wall and watched my wife work the room. She was good at it, remembering names, asking about people's children, making everyone feel important. But every few minutes, her eyes would dart over to where I was standing, and I could see the worry in them, like I was a problem she couldn't solve. The moment that changed, everything happened during dinner. I was still by the wall. I'd tried to sit at our assigned table, but Vivian had subtly steered me away with a look that said, "Not yet," when Grant Hale approached me. Malik. His voice was formal, like he was greeting a business associate he didn't particularly like. "Mr. Hale, I noticed you're not dressed for the occasion. I had to handle an emergency at the venue. Didn't have time to change." Ah, he nodded like that explained everything. "You know, I've been meaning to talk to you about something." "What's that, sir?" "Vivian's happiness, her reputation in our community." I felt something cold start to spread through my chest. "I want her to be happy too, sir." "Good, because these events, these people, they're important to her future, to the Foundation's future, and first impressions matter." "I understand." "Do you?" He moved closer, and I could smell his expensive cologne. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you don't understand at all. Mr. Hale, son, I'm going to be direct with you. Vivian is going to inherit this foundation someday. She's going to need the support of everyone in this room. And that support comes with expectations." "What kind of expectations?" "The kind where board members' wives don't have to wonder why their friend's husband shows up to black tie events in work clothes." The words hit me like a physical blow. "I told you, there was an emergency. There's always going to be an emergency, isn't there?" His smile was cold. "Because this is who you are. This is what you do. And that's fine, Malik. Honest work is admirable. But it's not suitable for the life Vivian needs to live." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe it's time for you to think about what's best for her, instead of what's best for you." He patted my shoulder like he was being kind, then walked away, leaving me standing there with his words echoing in my head. I looked across the room at Vivian. She was at our table now, talking animatedly to the people around her. She looked beautiful and confident and completely in her element, and I realized that in her element there was no place for me. The final blow came 20 minutes later. I'd moved closer to the dinner tables, thinking maybe now it was okay to join Vivian. But as I approached, I heard her voice rise above the general conversation. "Oh my God! Malik actually came like that." The words stopped me dead in my tracks. She was looking right at me, but she wasn't talking to me. She was talking about me. To the table full of people I'd never met, people who were now all turning to stare at me with barely concealed amusement. "I'm so sorry," she continued, and she was laughing. Actually laughing. "I told him to meet me here after work, but I didn't think he'd take me literally." Ethan leaned back in his chair, a smirk on his face. "Well, at least we know he takes direction well. Very practical." More laughter. Polite, quiet laughter that somehow felt louder than shouting. "Vivian," I said quietly, but she either didn't hear me or pretended not to. He's actually very good at what he does, she said, like she was defending me, but it didn't feel like defending. It felt like explaining a pet's behavior to house guests. Very reliable, very thorough. I'm sure he is, said a woman I didn't recognize. It's just so refreshing to see someone so comfortable with manual labor. The way she said manual labor made it sound like a disease. I stood there for a moment, feeling the eyes of 8 strangers examining me like I was an interesting bug they'd found on their plate, feeling my wife's nervous laughter wash over me like cold water. And I realized that Mrs. Gaines had been right. I was being trained to be smaller, quieter, less, trained to apologize for existing. "Excuse me," I said. I turned and walked toward the exit, past the servers and the photographers and the security guards who'd probably been wondering all night why a janitor was wandering around the party. I heard footsteps behind me. "Malik! Malik! Wait!" Vivian caught up to me in the hotel lobby, slightly out of breath. "Where are you going?" "Home." "You can't leave. The night isn't over." "It is for me." "Malik, please. I know you're upset, but you don't understand." "No, I understand perfectly." I turned to face her. "I understand that you're embarrassed by me. I understand that your friends think I'm some kind of joke, and I understand that you agree with them." "That's not true." "Then why did you laugh?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time all evening, she had no words. "I love you, Vivian, but I won't be your secret anymore, and I won't let you treat me like I'm something you need to apologize for." "Malik, it's not like that." "Then what is it like?" She was crying now, but quietly, the way rich people cry. No messy sobbing, just perfect tears that wouldn't mess up her makeup. "It's complicated." "No, it's not. Either you're proud to be married to me or you're not. Either I'm good enough for you or I'm not." "You are good enough. That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" It's about it's about fitting in. It's about not giving people reasons to talk." "And I'm a reason to talk?" She didn't answer, which was an answer all by itself. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my keys. "Malik, don't do this. Not here. Not tonight." "You're right. Not here." I started walking toward the parking garage. "Where are you going?" "To change clothes." "What do you mean?" I stopped and looked back at her. She was standing in the middle of the lobby in her beautiful dress, looking small and lost despite all her money and connections. "I mean, I'm going to put on the suit I brought, and then I'm coming back." "Why?" "Because you need to see who I really am. And they do too." 20 minutes later, I walked back into that ballroom wearing a $3,000 charcoal gray suit, Italian leather shoes, and a watch that cost more than some people's cars. I looked like money. I looked like power. I looked like exactly the kind of man who belonged in a room full of rich people, which I was. The conversations around me died down as I moved through the crowd. The same people who'd ignored me or treated me like the help now looked at me with curiosity and confusion. I found Vivian at the bar, talking quietly with Ethan. They both turned when they saw me approaching. "Malik?" Vivian's voice was small, uncertain. "Hello, sweetheart." I kissed her cheek gently, then turned to Ethan. "I don't think we've been properly introduced. I'm Malik Carter." Ethan looked confused, like he couldn't quite reconcile the man in the expensive suit with the janitor he'd been mocking an hour earlier. Uh, Ethan Crow." "Nice to meet you, Ethan." I smiled at him, a real smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I hope you've been taking good care of my wife while I was handling business." "Business?" Vivian asked. I pulled out my phone and showed them a text from Nora. "Thompson Industries wants to move the meeting up to 8 a.m. tomorrow. They're ready to sign." The merger I've been working on for 6 months just got accelerated. Should be worth about 50 million once it's finalized. I watched their faces change as they tried to process what I'd just said. Vivian looked like she was seeing me for the first time. Ethan looked like someone had just told him his trust fund was fake. 50 million? Vivian whispered. Give or take a few million. You never know with these corporate deals. I straightened my tie. I'm sorry I was late tonight, by the way. Had to handle that flooding situation at the venue. Couldn't leave the staff hanging. You you own a business? Ethan asked. Carter Services Group. We provide facilities management for commercial properties across 5 states. The Sterling Tower is one of our smaller accounts. Vivian was staring at me like I'd just performed magic. You work there, she said slowly. I own it. Well, my company does. I like to check in on our operations personally sometimes, make sure our standards are being maintained. I could see Grant Hale approaching from across the room, his face confused and slightly angry. Is there a problem? He asked when he reached us. No problem at all, Mr. Hale. Just introducing myself properly. I extended my hand. Malik Carter, CEO of Carter Services Group. Grant's handshake was automatic, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. Carter Services Group? We handle facilities management for most of the commercial buildings downtown, including several properties owned by Hale Enterprises. I watched recognition dawn in his eyes. I watched him realize that the janitor he'd been looking down on was actually someone who could make his life very difficult with a single phone call. I see. I've been meaning to schedule a meeting with you. Actually, we're expanding our services to include security and property development. Might be some opportunities for collaboration. The silence around our little group was getting thick. Other people had started to notice the conversation, drawn by the tension they could feel even if they couldn't hear what was being said. Malik, Vivian said quietly, can we talk? Of course, sweetheart. I turned back to Grant and Ethan. Gentlemen, it's been enlightening. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I took Vivian's hand and led her toward a quiet corner of the ballroom. Her fingers were ice cold. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Tell you what? About your company, about the money, about all of this. I looked at her for a long moment. She was beautiful and confused, and for the first time in months, she was looking at me like I was someone worth looking at. I tried to tell you lots of times, Vivian, but you never wanted to hear about my work. You just wanted me to be different. That's not true, isn't it? How many times have you asked me about my business? How many times have you come to visit my office or meet my employees? She was quiet. You married a janitor, remember? That's how you saw me. That's all you wanted to see. But you let me think. I let you think what you wanted to think. Because I thought if you loved me as a janitor, you'd love me no matter what. But it turns out you didn't love me as a janitor either. Tears were running down her face now, real tears that were definitely going to mess up her makeup. Malik, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. You did mean to. You meant every word you said to those people. You meant every time you told me to stand by the wall and be quiet. You meant it when you laughed at me like I was some kind of joke. I was nervous. I was scared. Of what? Of me? Of them? Of what they'd think? Of not being good enough? So you made sure I felt not good enough instead. We stood there looking at each other, and I could see 3 years of marriage falling apart in real time. All the little compromises I'd made, all the times I'd swallowed my pride, all the moments I'd let her make me smaller so she could feel bigger. What happens now? She asked. I looked around the ballroom, at Grant Hale, who was having an intense conversation with 2 other men, at Ethan, who was staring at us from across the room, at all the people who'd spent the evening treating me like I was invisible. Now, you get to explain to your friends that you've been married to a multimillionaire for 3 years and never bothered to find out. And us? What happens to us? I touched her face gently, wiping away a tear with my thumb. I don't know, baby. I honestly don't know. I kissed her forehead, breathed in the smell of her perfume one more time, and walked away. Behind me, I heard her whisper my name, but I didn't turn around, because for the first time in 3 years, I was walking away from Vivian Hale instead of toward her, and it felt like freedom. The drive home was silent, except for the sound of Vivian crying. She sat in the passenger seat of my car. Not the work truck, but the black BMW I usually kept in the garage, with her hands folded in her lap and tears streaming down her face. Every few minutes she'd try to say something, but then the words would die in her throat. I didn't try to comfort her. For the first time in our marriage, her tears didn't make me want to fix everything. When we pulled into our driveway, Vivian finally spoke. Are you coming inside? I need some time to think. How much time? I don't know. She sat there for another minute, like she was hoping I'd change my mind. When I didn't, she got out of the car slowly and walked to the front door. I watched her fumble with her keys, her hands shaking. After she went inside, I drove to the only place that made sense. Mrs. Gaines's house. Mrs. Gaines lived in a small blue house about 20 minutes from downtown. She'd bought it 30 years ago with her husband before he died of cancer. The yard was full of flowers she planted herself, and the porch had two rocking chairs where she liked to sit in the evenings. She answered the door in her bathrobe, but she didn't look surprised to see me. I wondered when you'd show up, she said, stepping aside to let me in. I'm sorry it's so late, Mrs. Gaines. Honey, it's barely 10 o'clock, and you look like you need to talk. Her living room was small and comfortable, filled with photos of her family and furniture that had been there since before I was born. She pointed me toward the couch and went to make tea. So, she called from the kitchen, how was the fancy party? I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Exactly what you said it would be. She came back with two steaming mugs and settled into her favorite chair across from me. Want to tell me about it? So I did. I told her about showing up in my work clothes, about standing by the wall like a decoration, about Vivian's laughter cutting through me like a knife. I told her about Grant's threats and Ethan's smirks and the way 8 strangers had examined me like I was something they'd scraped off their shoes. Then, I told her about changing clothes and walking back in as myself, about the looks on their faces when they realized who I really was. Mrs. Gaines listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, her dark eyes never leaving my face. How do you feel now? She asked when I finished. Empty, I said. And it was true. I'd expected to feel angry or satisfied or something. Instead, I just felt hollow. Like I won something, but I'm not sure what. You won your dignity back. Did I? Because it doesn't feel like winning. Mrs. Gaines set down her tea and leaned forward. Malik, baby, let me ask you something. When you walked into that room the second time, what did you see in your wife's eyes? I thought about the way Vivian had looked at me when she realized what I'd been hiding. Shock, I said. And maybe respect, but not love? I don't know. Maybe love for who she thought I was, but not for who I actually am. And what's the difference? She fell in love with a rich man in an expensive suit, not with the man who was wearing a work uniform because he'd spent 2 hours fixing a leak so her event wouldn't be ruined. Mrs. Gaines nodded slowly. That's the thing about some people. They can only see you when you look like what they think they want. So, what do I do now? What do you want to do? I was quiet for a long time, listening to the clock on her mantel tick away the seconds. I want to go home and pretend tonight never happened. I want to wake up tomorrow and have my wife look at me the way she used to. I want us to be happy. But But I can't unhear the things she said. I can't unsee the look on her face when she was laughing at me, and I can't pretend that was the first time. No, baby, you can't. Mrs. Gaines, do you think she loves me? She was quiet for so long, I thought maybe she hadn't heard the question. Finally, she spoke. I think she loves the idea of you. I think she loves having a husband. I think she loves the way your story sounds when she tells it to people who think it's romantic that she married down. But do I think she loves you? The real you? The man who works nights because he believes in honest labor? The man who stops everything to help people in trouble? The man who's been hiding his success because he wanted to be loved for who he is instead of what he has? She shook her head sadly. Honey, if she loved that man, she never would have been ashamed of him. I got home around midnight. The house was dark except for one light in the kitchen. Vivian was sitting at the table in her pajamas, still wearing her makeup from the gala. She looked up when I walked in. I wasn't sure you were coming back tonight. I live here. Do you? Because lately, it feels like you're just visiting. I sat down across from her. Up close, I could see that her makeup was smeared from crying. Her perfect appearance from earlier was completely gone. We need to talk, she said. I know. Why didn't you tell me? About your company, about the money, about everything? I tried to, Vivian, but every time I wanted to talk about work, you'd change the subject. You didn't want to hear about my boring janitorial business. But it's not boring. It's huge. It's the same business it always was. You just decided it was boring because you thought I was poor. She flinched, like I'd slapped her. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you asked me about my day at work? When's the last time you wanted to know what I was thinking about or planning or worried about? I I ask you things. You ask me to take out the trash and pick up your dry cleaning and remember to use the good silverware when your friends come over. But you don't ask me things. You don't see me. I see you. You see what you want to see. You see a janitor who married above his station and should be grateful for the opportunity. Stop saying that. Why? Because it's true? Vivian started crying again, but this time it was angry crying. You don't understand what it's like. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. What pressure? From my father, from my friends, from everyone who thinks I'm crazy for marrying someone who. She stopped. Someone who what? Someone who doesn't fit in my world. And what world is that, Vivian? Because I've got news for you. I fit in your world just fine. I've got more money than half the people at that party tonight. I employ more people than your father's foundation helps in a year. So what is it that I don't fit? She was quiet. Say it, Vivian. Say what you really mean. I mean, someone who's. She struggled with the words. Someone who's different. Different how? You know how? No, I don't. Tell me. Someone who's black. The words hung in the air between us like a bomb that had finally exploded. There it is, I said quietly. That's not. I don't mean it like that. How do you mean it? I mean that people notice. They talk. They make assumptions. What kind of assumptions? That I'm trying to make a statement. That I'm going through a phase. That I'm rebelling against my family. And are you? No. I love you. But you're ashamed of me. I'm not ashamed of you. I'm ashamed of how people look at us. And instead of telling those people to go to hell, you decided to make me smaller so they'd be more comfortable. Vivian put her face in her hands. I never meant for it to happen like that. But it did happen like that. And it's been happening for months. I know, and I'm sorry. Are you sorry because you hurt me or because you got caught? She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. Both, she whispered. I'm sorry for both. At least she was being honest. We talked until 3 in the morning. We talked about things we should have talked about years ago. about race and money and family and the difference between love and possession. Vivian cried a lot. I didn't. I want to fix this, she said as the sun started to come up. Tell me how to fix this. I don't think you can. Don't say that. Please don't say that. Vivian, you spent 3 years being embarrassed by the man you married. You spent tonight laughing at me in front of strangers. You can't just apologize that away. But I can try. I can do better. Can you? Because this isn't about doing better. This is about who you are when you think nobody important is watching. What do you mean? I mean, you were perfectly comfortable mocking me until you found out I had money. Now that you know I'm rich, you want to work things out. That doesn't feel like love, Vivian. That feels like regret. That's not true, isn't it? If I was still just a janitor, if I didn't have Carter Services Group or the money or any of it, would you still want to fix this? Or would you be relieved that you finally had an excuse to leave? She didn't answer, which was an answer. I need some space, I said. How much space? I don't know, but I can't be in this house right now. I can't pretend we're okay when we're not. Where will you go? I'll figure it out. Malik, please, don't do this. Don't leave me. You left me first, Vivian. You left me standing by that wall while you performed for your friends. You left me months ago when you decided I wasn't worth defending. I went upstairs and packed a bag. When I came back down, Vivian was still sitting at the kitchen table. Will you call me? She asked. I need time to think. How much time? I don't know. I kissed the top of her head, breathed in the smell of her hair one more time, and left. I spent the next few days at a hotel downtown. It was a nice hotel, the kind Vivian and I used to stay at when we traveled together, but it felt empty and strange. Nora called me Monday morning about the Thompson Industries meeting. Are you okay? She asked. You sound tired. Rough weekend. Want to talk about it? Nora was more than my executive assistant. She was my friend. She'd been there for 5 years, through good times and bad, and she was one of the few people who knew about both sides of my life. Vivian and I are having some problems. I'm sorry to hear that. Anything I can do? Actually, yeah. Can you handle the Thompson meeting for me? I need a few more days to get my head straight. Of course. Malik? Yeah? For what it's worth, I've always thought you deserve better than someone who doesn't appreciate what an incredible man you are. After I hung up, I sat in my hotel room and stared out the window at the city below. I thought about Mrs. Gaines and her wisdom about dignity. I thought about Vivian and her tears and her promises to do better. But mostly, I thought about the sound of her laughter when she'd mocked me in front of her friends. Some sounds you can't unhear. Some trust, once broken, doesn't mend. Tuesday evening, my phone rang. It was Grant Hale. Malik, we need to talk. Do we? I think there's been a misunderstanding about the other night. I don't think there was any misunderstanding, Mr. Hale. I think you were very clear about what you thought of me. I was misinformed about your circumstances. You mean you didn't know I had money? I mean, I didn't realize you were a successful businessman. And that changes how you see me? There was a pause. It changes the conversation. Does it? Because the way I remember it, you told me I wasn't suitable for your daughter's life. You told me I should think about what's best for her instead of what's best for me. None of that had anything to do with how much money I have. Malik, I'm calling to apologize and to discuss the situation with Vivian. What situation? She's been difficult since Saturday night. She's not eating, she's not sleeping, she's not handling her foundation responsibilities. People are starting to notice. And you think that's my fault? I think she needs her husband. She needed her husband Saturday night too, but she decided to make fun of him instead. That was a mistake. She knows that now. Mr. Hale, with all due respect, this isn't about what Vivian knows. This is about what she felt comfortable doing when she thought it didn't matter. What do you want? Money? We can discuss a settlement. I hung up. 10 minutes later, Vivian called. Did you talk to my father? Briefly. He said you hung up on him. He tried to bribe me. He's trying to help. He's trying to control the situation, just like always. Malik, can we please just talk? In person? I was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city lights. Okay, but not at the house. Somewhere public. Okay, where? Joe's Diner on 5th Street. Tomorrow at 7. That's... that's kind of a rough neighborhood. It's where I eat lunch sometimes. The food is good and the people are real. Okay, I'll be there. After I hung up, I realized that even her surprise about the diner told me everything I needed to know. After 3 years of marriage, she didn't know where I ate lunch. She didn't know the places I liked, or the people I talked to, or the life I lived outside of our house. She didn't know me at all. Joe's Diner was exactly what it looked like, a small family-owned restaurant that served good food to working people. I'd been eating there for years, ever since I started doing facilities work in the area. Vivian arrived 10 minutes late, wearing jeans and a sweater, but still looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. She stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the room like she wasn't sure she was in the right place. Over here, I called. She slid into the booth across from me, glancing around nervously. This is nice, she said. You don't have to pretend, Vivian. I'm not pretending. It's just different from the places we usually go. Everything about this situation is different from usual. Joe himself came over to take our order. He was a big man with graying hair and hands that had been working since he was a kid. Hey, Malik. Haven't seen you in a few days. Been busy, Joe. This is my wife, Vivian. Nice to meet. You, ma'am. Welcome to Joe's. Vivian smiled politely. Thank you. After Joe left, we sat in silence for a moment. He seems nice, Vivian said. He is. His family's owned this place for 40 years. His son Marcus works here too. He's saving up for college. You know a lot about them. I talk to people, Vivian. I ask about their lives. I care about their stories. She looked down at her hands. I know you think I don't care about people. I think you care about people who can do something for you. There's a difference. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you had a real conversation with someone who couldn't help your career or your social standing? She was quiet. That's what I thought. Malik, I know I've made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But I love you, and I want to fight for us. Do you love me, Vivian? Or do you love the idea of being married to a successful black businessman? I love you. Which me? The janitor you were ashamed of, or the CEO you just found out about? Both, all of you. But you didn't know there was an all of me. You thought what you saw was everything there was, because you let me think that. No, I let you choose what you wanted to see, and you chose to see someone you could look down on. Vivian started crying again, but quietly, trying not to make a scene. I don't know how to fix this, she whispered. I don't think you can. Don't say that. Please, tell me what to do. I looked at her across the table. She was beautiful and broken and desperate, and part of me wanted to comfort her the way I always had. But I couldn't forget the sound of her laughter. I couldn't forget the way she'd looked at me like I was something embarrassing she had to explain. I think, I said slowly, that you need to figure out who you are when nobody's watching, and I need to figure out if that person is someone I can trust with my heart. And how long will that take? I don't know. Joe brought our food, and we ate in silence. Every few minutes, Vivian would start to say something, then stop. When we were finished, I walked her to her car. Malik, yeah? I miss you. I miss us. I miss us too. But missing something doesn't mean it was real. I watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing into the night. Then, I went back to my hotel room and called Mrs. Gaines. How'd it go? She asked. Exactly like you said it would. And how do you feel? Sad, but not sorry. That's growth, baby. That's growth. 2 weeks passed before I saw Vivian again. I'd moved into a furnished apartment downtown, close to my office building. It was temporary, but it felt more like home than the house we'd shared ever had. Simple furniture, no expensive art on the walls, no fresh flowers delivered twice a week. Just a place where I could think clearly. Nora had been handling most of my meetings, but she couldn't protect me from everything. There's a problem, she said when she came to my apartment Thursday evening. She had a manila folder in her hands and a look on her face that said I wasn't going to like what was inside. What kind of problem? The kind where someone recorded you at that gala. She opened the folder and pulled out printed screenshots from social media. The first one showed me in my janitor uniform, looking uncomfortable as Vivian laughed. The second showed me in my expensive suit, talking to Grant Hale. The third was a close up of Vivian's face during our final conversation, tears streaming down her cheeks. Someone's been posting these with captions, Nora said, making it look like you were trying to infiltrate some exclusive event, like you were pretending to be someone you're not. I scrolled through the images, feeling sick. Who posted them? The account is anonymous, but I have a pretty good idea. Ethan? That would be my guess. He's been posting a lot about social climbing and people who don't know their place lately. I set the papers down on my coffee table. How bad is it? It's getting attention. Someone shared it in a business networking group. Another person posted it on a forum about fake entrepreneurs. The story is that you're some kind of con artist who married into money and got caught. And what's the truth getting? Not as much traction as the lie. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, people I'd never met were making judgments about my life based on a few out of context photos. What do you think I should do? Fight back. Tell your story. Show them who you really are. And become exactly what they're saying I am? Someone who needs to prove himself to strangers? Nora was quiet for a moment. You know what Mrs. Gaines would say? I smiled despite everything. What would she say? She'd say that people who know you don't need proof, and people who don't know you don't deserve it. She would say that, but she'd also say you can't let lies about you stand unchallenged forever. My phone rang. It was Vivian. Malik, we need to talk. Something terrible is happening. I know about the photos. You know? How do you know? Nora showed me. Is this what you called about? Yes. It's all over social media. People are saying horrible things about you, about us. We need to do something. Like what? Like post something together. Show people we're still married. Make them understand that you're not some fraud. And are we? Still married, I mean? There was a long pause. Aren't we? I don't know, Vivian. Are we? I want us to be. That's not the same thing. Malik, please, can we meet? I have something to show you. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near her office. Vivian was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with her laptop open. She looked thinner than she had 2 weeks ago, like she hadn't been eating. Enough. Her hair was still perfect, her clothes still expensive, but something about her seemed smaller. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. What did you want to show me? She turned the laptop around. On the screen was a blog post she'd written but not yet published. Read this. The title was, My Husband is Not a Con Artist, but I Might Be a Terrible Wife. I read the whole thing. It was honest in a way that surprised me. She wrote about her privilege, her fears, her shame about being ashamed. She wrote about the night at the gala and how she'd failed me in the worst possible way. She wrote about learning that the man she'd married was more successful than she'd ever imagined, and how that made her feel smaller, not bigger. "What do you think?" she asked when I finished. "I think it's honest." "Too honest?" "Maybe. Your father isn't going to like it." "I don't care what my father likes anymore." I looked at her across the table. "What changed?" "You left. And for the first time in my life, I had to sit with what I'd done without someone there to make me feel better about it. And And I realized that everything you said was true. I was ashamed of you. I was performing for people whose opinions don't actually matter. And I was so scared of not being good enough that I made sure you felt not good enough instead." She closed the laptop. "I also realized that when you left, you took all the good parts of my life with you." "What do you mean?" "I mean, the only times I felt like myself were when it was just us, when we were cooking dinner together or watching movies or talking about your day. Back when I still asked about your day. The rest of it, the galas and the charity work and the social events, that's not me. That's just me playing a part my father wrote for me." I sipped my coffee and thought about what she was saying. "So, what do you want to do about it?" "I want to post this blog. I want to tell the truth about what happened. And I want to ask you to forgive me." "And then what?" "And then I want to fight for us. Really fight. Not just apologize and expect you to come back, but actually change. Actually become the person you deserve to be married to." "Vivian, I know I hurt you. I know I broke something that might not be fixable. But I also know that I love you more than I love anyone's opinion of me. It just took losing you for me to figure that out." She reached across the table and put her hand over mine. "I don't expect you to trust me right away. I don't expect you to move back home and pretend everything's fine. But will you give me a chance to prove that I can be different?" I looked at her hand on mine. Her wedding ring was still there, but it looked loose, like she'd lost weight. "What would that look like?" "I don't know exactly, but maybe it starts with me posting this blog, with me telling the truth instead of managing the story." "And what about your father? Your friends? Your whole social circle?" "What about them? They're not going to like being called out publicly." "Then maybe I need different friends." I studied her face, looking for signs of the performance I'd gotten so used to, but she just looked tired and sad and real. "Okay," I said. "Okay, what?" "Okay, post the blog. Tell the truth. Let's see what happens." "And us? And we'll see what happens with that too." Vivian posted the blog that afternoon. Within 2 hours, it had been shared 300 times. Within a day, it had gone viral. The response was mixed. Some people praised her honesty. Others said it was too little, too late. A few suggested she was only telling the truth now because she'd gotten caught. But what surprised me was how many people shared their own stories. Stories about shame and marriage and the difference between love and possession. Stories about learning to see their partners as real people instead of reflections of themselves. Grant Hale called me the next morning. "This is a disaster," he said without preamble. "Good morning to you too, Mr. Hale. Vivian's blog post has made our entire family look foolish. The foundation's board is asking questions. Our donors are concerned. Maybe they should be concerned. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe it's time for your family to stop caring more about looking good than being good. You have no idea what you're talking about." "I have every idea what I'm talking about. I've been watching this family operate for 3 years. I've seen how you treat people who can't do anything for you. I've seen how you use charity work as a social networking opportunity. And I've seen how you raised your daughter to value appearance over substance. How dare you?" "I'm not attacking you, Mr. Hale. I'm just pointing out that maybe this is an opportunity for some self reflection." "We don't need self reflection. We need damage control. No, sir. You need to decide whether you love your daughter enough to let her be honest about her mistakes. I hung up before he could respond. Over the next week, Vivian and I started having coffee every few days. Not dates, exactly. More like conversations between two people trying to figure out if they still knew each other. She told me about the responses to her blog post, about friends who'd stopped calling and family members who were furious, but also about messages from strangers who thanked her for her honesty. Ethan hasn't spoken to me since it went up, she said during one of our meetings. How do you feel about that? Relieved, mostly. I've been thinking about our friendship and I realized it was never really a friendship. It was more like mutual enabling. He made me feel superior to other people, and I made him feel justified in his prejudices. That's a hard thing to realize about yourself. Everything about this has been hard, but good hard, if that makes sense. Like exercise that hurts while you're doing it but makes you stronger. I watched her as she talked. She seemed different, more thoughtful, less performative, like she was actually thinking about what she wanted to say instead of just saying what she thought would get the reaction she wanted. Can I ask you something? She said. Why didn't you fight back? When the photos first got posted, when people were calling you a fraud, why didn't you defend yourself? Because fighting back would have meant playing their game. And their game is about proving yourself to people who've already decided what they think of you. But doesn't it bother you that people think those things? Some people will always think those things, Vivian. No matter what I do, no matter how much money I make, no matter how successful I become, there will always be people who see a black man and assume I don't belong wherever I am. That's horrible. It's reality. But the flip side is that there are also people who see a black man and assume I'm strong and capable and worthy of respect. And those are the people whose opinions actually matter to me. She was quiet for a moment. I want to be one of those people. You can be, but it starts with seeing me as I actually am, not as what you want me to be or what you're afraid other people will think I am. I'm trying. I know you are. 3 weeks after Vivian posted her blog, I got a call from an unexpected source. Mr. Carter, this is Marcus Johnson from Joe's Diner. Joe's son? Hey, Marcus. How are you? I'm good, sir. But I wanted to call you about something. I saw your wife's blog post and the whole situation with those photos. Okay. Well, I was working that night at the gala. My catering company was helping with the event. I sat up straighter. You were there? Yes, sir. And I saw what really happened. I saw you helping us fix that leak, staying late to make sure everything was okay for the guests. I saw how those people treated you, and I saw how your wife acted. Marcus. But I also saw something else. I saw the video that guy took, the one he edited to make you look bad. Except, I was standing right there when he filmed it, so I know what he cut out. What did he cut out? He cut out the part where you were being respectful and calm. He cut out the part where you were just trying to leave quietly. He made it look like you were angry and aggressive, but that's not what happened. Do you have the original footage? No, but I have something better. I have my own video. I was filming for my portfolio. I'm trying to get into film school, and I caught the whole thing. 2 hours later, Marcus was sitting in my apartment with his laptop, showing me footage that completely contradicted the story Ethan had been spreading online. In Marcus's video, I looked exactly like what I was, a man in work clothes who'd been helping with an emergency, trying to attend his wife's important event, and quietly leaving when it became clear he wasn't welcome. What do you want to do with this? Marcus asked. I thought about it. I could post Marcus's video and completely destroy Ethan's credibility. I could vindicate myself in the most public way possible. Or I could let it go. Can you send me a copy? Of course. But Marcus, I want you to keep the original just in case. In case of what? In case this ever happens to someone else, in case someone like you ever needs proof that not everything is what it seems. After Marcus left, I called Vivian. I have the real video from that night, I said. What real video? I explained about Marcus and his footage. Oh my god, Malik, we have to post it. We have to show everyone the truth. Do we? What do you mean? I mean, do we need everyone to know the truth, or do we just need to know the truth ourselves? She was quiet for a moment. I don't understand. Vivian, if I post that video, what happens? Ethan looks like an idiot. Everyone sees that he lied. And then what? And then I guess everyone knows you're telling the truth. But the people who matter to me already know I'm telling the truth. Mrs. Gaines knows, Nora knows, you know, Marcus knows, the people whose opinions actually affect my life know who I am. But what about everyone else? What about them? If I spend my life trying to convince every stranger on the internet that I'm a good person, when do I have time to actually be a good person? I could hear her thinking, so you're just going to let him win? I'm going to let him be him, and I'm going to be me, and we'll both live with the consequences of our choices. The next morning, I woke up and made a decision. I called Vivian. Want to have breakfast? Really? Really, but not at the hotel restaurant or some fancy place downtown. I want to take you to Joe's Diner. Okay, but why? Because I want you to meet some people who matter to me. An hour later, we were sitting in the same booth where I'd had lunch countless times over the past 5 years. Joe brought us coffee and introduced Vivian to his wife Maria, who worked the morning shift. So, you're Malik's wife? Maria said with a warm smile. He talks about you all the time. He does? Oh, yes. Always Vivian this and Vivian that. You can tell when a man loves his wife, you know? Vivian looked at me with surprise. You talk about me here? I talk about you everywhere. You're my wife. But I thought you kept your work life and home life separate. I keep my professional life and personal life separate. But you were never separate from who I am. Marcus came out from the kitchen during a break and sat with us for a few minutes. He told Vivian about his film school applications and his dreams of making documentaries about working class communities. Your husband helped me write my application essay, he said. He's got a good way of helping people. See what they're really trying to say. After Marcus went back to work, Vivian was quiet. What are you thinking about? I asked. I'm thinking about how stupid I've been. You have this whole life, this whole community of people who love and respect you, and I never even knew it existed. You could have known. You just had to ask. I know. I know. And I'm sorry. Stop apologizing, Vivian. Start participating. She looked around the diner, at the families having breakfast, at the construction workers grabbing coffee before their shifts, at the elderly couples who'd probably been coming here for decades. How do I do that? Same way you do anything else, one day at a time. That afternoon, I made another decision. I went to see Mrs. Gaines. How you doing, baby? She asked as she let me into her house. I'm okay. Actually, I think I'm more than okay. Good to hear. What's brought about this change? I think I figured something out. What's that? I think I figured out the difference between being right and being free. Mrs. Gaines nodded like she'd been waiting for me to say exactly that. Tell me. For weeks, I've been focused on being right, proving that Vivian hurt me, proving that her friends were wrong about me, proving that I deserved better treatment, and I was right about all of that. But, but being right doesn't make me happy. It just makes me right. And being free? Being free means I get to choose what kind of man I want to be, regardless of how other people treat me. It means I can forgive Vivian without pretending what she did was okay. It means I can walk away from her family's drama without carrying anger about it forever. Mrs. Gaines smiled. Sounds like you learned the lesson. What lesson? The one I've been trying to teach you for years. The one about not letting other people's problems become your problems. But what about Vivian? What about our marriage? What about them? Do you think we can make it work? Mrs. Gaines poured herself a cup of tea and settled into her chair. Baby, that's not the right question. What is? The right question is whether you want to make it work, and whether she wants to make it work, and whether you both want to make it work for the right reasons. And what are the right reasons? Love, respect, genuine like for each other as people, not fear of being alone, not habit, not guilt about the past, just simple love between two people who see each other clearly and choose each other anyway. I thought about that. I think I still love her. I think you do too, but I don't trust her yet. And she shouldn't expect you to. Trust gets rebuilt slowly, one choice at a time. So, what do I do? You do what feels right to you, not what feels fair, not what feels smart, not what feels safe, what feels right. 6 months later, Vivian and I were sitting in marriage counseling. Not the kind of therapy where someone tries to fix everything that's wrong. The kind where two people learn how to talk to each other like they're strangers meeting for the first time. What do you need from Malik this week? Dr. Peterson asked Vivian. I need him to believe that I'm capable of change. I need him to see that I'm trying. And what do you need from Vivian? She asked me. I need her to be patient with my healing. I need her to understand that forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. And how are you both doing with that? Better, Vivian said. Slower than I want, but better. Change takes time, I said. Both changing and trusting that change is real. Dr. Peterson nodded. What's working? The small things, Vivian said. Coffee dates twice a week, Sunday dinners at Joe's Diner, meeting Malik's friends and coworkers, learning about his actual life instead of the version I made up in my head. And for you, Malik? Watching her make different choices, seeing her stand up to her father when he tries to control the situation, listening to her ask real questions about my day instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. Are you living together? Not yet, I said. I'm still in my apartment, but we're talking about it. What would need to happen for you to feel ready for that step? I thought about it. I need to know that she loves me on my worst days, not just my best ones. I need to know that she's proud to be married to me when I'm wearing a work uniform, not just when I'm in a business suit. And how will you know that? Time, consistency, watching her choose me over her comfort over and over again until it becomes natural instead of difficult. Vivian reached for my hand. I'm willing to do that for as long as it takes. I know you are, and I'm willing to let you try. 1 year after the gala, I was back in my work uniform. Not because I had to be, because I wanted to be. I was finishing up the night shift at the Sterling Tower, the same building where this whole story started. The place was quiet and peaceful, just like I remembered. My phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. How's work going? I have dinner waiting when you get home. Home. We'd been living together again for 3 months. The same house, but different people living in it. I texted back, almost done. See you soon. As I was putting my equipment away, I saw a familiar car pull up outside, a black Lamborghini, but it wasn't mine. Through the window, I watched Vivian get out of the driver's seat. She was wearing jeans and sneakers and one of my old sweatshirts. She looked like herself, not the performed version, just herself. She came through the lobby doors carrying a thermos of coffee and a brown bag that probably contained sandwiches. Thought you might be hungry, she said. You drove all the way downtown to bring me food? I drove all the way downtown to see my husband. I kissed her right there in the lobby, both of us smiling. Nice car, I said, gesturing toward the Lamborghini. It's yours. I thought maybe it was time you stopped hiding who you are. And who am I? You're Malik Carter. You're a man who works hard and treats people well and doesn't need anyone's permission to be successful. You're someone who fixes problems and helps people and stays late to make sure things are done right. And you're the love of my life. I looked at her. This woman I'd almost lost. This woman who'd almost lost me. You sure about that? I'm sure about all of it. Even the love of your life part? Especially the love of your life part. We sat in the lobby of the Sterling Tower, eating sandwiches and drinking coffee, talking about our days like we were any other married couple, which I guess we were. Later, as we walked to our cars, Vivian stopped and looked back at the building. I used to be ashamed that you worked here, she said. And now? Now, I'm proud that you own it. That's not the point, baby. I know. The point is that I should have been proud either way. Are you? She turned to look at me in my janitor's uniform with my keys and my work boots and my hands that were honest and tired. I'm proud of who you are when nobody important is watching, she said. I'm proud of who you are when everybody important is watching. I'm proud to be married to a man who doesn't change based on his audience. Good, I said, because that's the only man you're ever going to get. We drove home in our separate cars, her in the Lamborghini, me in my work truck. But for the first time in over a year, we were driving to the same place, home, together. 5 years later, sometimes people ask me about the night everything changed, about the gala and the uniform and the moment I decided to stop making myself smaller for other people's comfort. I tell them it wasn't really one moment. It was 1,000 small moments leading up to one big decision. The decision to love myself enough to demand better. Vivian and I have been married for 8 years now. We've been happy together for about 5 of them. The other 3 were necessary for learning, for growing, for figuring out the difference between love and habit. She still works for the family foundation, but she runs it differently now. Less focus on galas and networking, more focus on actually helping people. She spends time in the communities they serve. She asks questions and listens to answers. She also volunteers at Joe's Diner one Saturday a month, serving breakfast to families who need a good meal and a warm place to sit. Marcus finished film school and made a documentary about working class dignity. It won awards at 3 film festivals. Vivian helped him apply for grants. Mrs. Gaines is still giving advice to anyone wise enough to listen. She says she's proud of me for learning the difference between being right and being free. Grant Hale and I have a professional relationship now. Not warm, but respectful. He learned that treating me badly was bad for business. I learned that expecting him to change was bad for my peace of mind. Ethan disappeared from our social circle after it came out that he'd edited that video. Not because of any dramatic confrontation, but because people gradually realized he wasn't the kind of person they wanted to be around. Sometimes, I still work night shifts in my uniform. Not because I have to, but because it keeps me grounded. It reminds me who I am when nobody important is watching. And sometimes, early in the morning when the city is just waking up, Vivian brings me coffee and sits with me while I finish my work. She doesn't do it for show. She doesn't post about it on social media or tell her friends about it at parties. She does it because she loves the man in the uniform as much as she loves the man in the business suit. She does it because she finally learned they're the same man. And I let her do it because I finally learned that I deserve to be loved for who I actually am, not who I could pretend to be. The other morning, she asked me if I ever regret the way everything happened. Do you mean, do I regret that you humiliated me in public and we almost got divorced? Yeah, that. No. Really? Really? Because if it hadn't happened that way, I might have spent the rest of my life being grateful for scraps instead of demanding the feast I deserved. And what feast is that? Being loved completely, being respected consistently, being seen clearly. She was quiet for a moment. And do you have that now? I looked at her sitting across from me in the break room of the Sterling Tower, wearing jeans and my company jacket, her hair messy from sleep, her face free of makeup. She looked like herself, like the woman I'd fallen in love with before she got scared of not being enough. Yeah, I said, I have that now. Good, she said, because that's all I ever wanted to give you. I just had to learn. How? These days, when people see my Lamborghini parked outside the Sterling Tower at night, they don't wonder why a rich man is at an office building after hours. They figure a CEO is working late, which is exactly what I am. And when they see me the next morning, walking to my car in my work uniform, they don't assume I'm poor. They assume a successful man is hands on with his business, which is exactly what I am. The uniform doesn't make me less. The money doesn't make me more. I'm just a man who learned to take up the space he deserved, with a wife who learned to love him in that space. And some mornings, when Vivian sees my car parked outside her office building, she still stops and smiles. Not because she's proud to be married to a rich man, because she's proud to be married to a good man. And that, I've learned, is the quiet kind of victory that actually lasts.